Question from a student: how do I display the functions in my lecture spreadsheets? Here is an example. So this is a workbook with worksheets, and here I have calculated or done a 3-point estimation using the PERT distribution. So I've taken the weighted average of 3 parameters here in order to calculate the expected cost. And there's a function here, and I displayed it over here to the right. So the question is, like, how did I do that? Did I have to type this in manually? The answer to that is no. I wrote a function that is automatically displaying the function of the cell to its left, or whatever cell you specify, but I presume it's always going to be to the left of it. So if you look over here, you see that it's C3 plus 4 times C4 plus C5 divided by 6, and that is displayed on the right here. So I could type this in manually. I could type in something like this, these arrows, and then an equal sign, open parentheses, C3, and blah 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 blah. I could do that, but that would be very cumbersome. So instead, what I did here is to create the function with VBA, that's Visual Basic Applications, the programming language of Excel, to kind of do this automatically. And it's called here this get function. Truth on the table, cards on the table here. I didn't come up with this function myself. I saw this a long time ago in a book. We'll just put it in here. So let's look at how that works. It's been many years since I actually looked at that book, so I'm just recreating this function from memory. So it could be slight differences between how I have written it now and how it is in the original source. But if I remember correctly, that book didn't actually come up with the function either. They are in a footnote, a big thanks to a colleague who came up with it. But anyway, to open up the VBA editor, you can use the shortcut here, Alt F11. When you do that for the first time in a new workbook, this area here is going to be gray. So the first order of business is to open up a new module, which I kind of already done here. But to open up a new module, you can click here on Insert, and then you can click on Module. So then it turns from gray to being white. Or if you prefer to use the keyboard and be a little bit cool hacker dude, you can click in sequence, Alt, then I for insert or I for India, and then M for module or mic, and you get like a new module like this. You see, we are in module 1, and then we got module 2. It's boring for you to see me type out this. I already did it. So let's just try to explain what's going on there. Basically, 2 things you can do with the module. You can either create like a sub or subroutine, which we colloquially often refer to as a macro, or you can make a user-made function, and that's what we did here. We wrote a function, and you know that because it says function right here. If it instead had said sub, you would know it was like a subroutine, which is a macro. So after you write function, you need to come up with a name for the function, and that needs to be something that is not already in use, or something that doesn't use prohibited characters. So the author of the book, he called it get function, but this is just a name. You can call it whatever you want. But make sure you don't use a white space, for instance. You cannot have a white space here in a name, and there are certain characters that you also are not allowed to use. But A, B, C all the way to Z for Zulu is fine. 1, 2, 3, and to 9 and 0, that's fine, and underscores and such like that. There are certain characters you need to avoid. Then there's an open parenthesis and an end parenthesis. And inside of this parenthesis, you need to list up all the inputs that the function is going to require. So first you have input 1, and in this case you only have a single input. But if you had more inputs, you could write comma, and then list up the other inputs. So the input here, I just called it R. I'm not sure why I called it R, but you could call it anything. It could be called bunny or rabbit. But this is just a name, change it to whatever you want. And then I specify what type of variable is it. So as, under the data type here, range. So R here is going to be a reference to a specific cell, so a range. But this could be anything. It could be, for instance, an integer. It could be a decimal number. In this case, use double, and so on and so forth. It could be a boolean. So this is just a data type. And then next here, outside of the parentheses, I need to specify the data type of the of the output of the function. So the output of the get function, what is that going to be? Well, it's going to be a string. And string just means that it can be letters and numbers and all kind of characters, right? So next here, we have like an if then else function. And to be honest, this function here is kind of outdated. The way it's written, we no longer actually need it to be the way it is. It's needlessly complex now. And that's because this recently has been like a major change in Excel. So this, we had to do it this way like before, like one of the more recent updates. But now this has become redundant. But I think it's nice to just have the whole thing here as an opportunity to explain some additional details. So I'm going to assume you know how an if then else function works. But essentially, if some kind of condition is true, then we do something. And if the condition is not true, then we jump to this your else output. So either we get this or we get all this. So what is happening here? Ask here if the input range that we just call r, if r has an array, if it is an array function, then I'm going to do something. So if there is an array function and not just a normal worksheet function, then the output of get function is going to be a concatenation of different things. So I have hard-coded a string here, which is just like this less than sign and two minus signs to kind of create like an arrow, right? That's just a string. And I concatenate it, the ampersand here, that means to merge together things, strings. Another string here, which is just this curly bracket, and then concatenate it with r.FormulaArray. So r again is just the input range we specified here, and formula array, that's like the formula that is like inside of that cell. So that's a big secret there. How do you display the function? Well, is use formula array. And then I concatenate it with another string here, which is like the end of the curly bracket. If r is not an array function, then we do very much the same thing, except I have removed, you can see like this line here is almost the same as this line here. The only difference is that they did not include the curly brackets. So let me just explain what's going on with the curly brackets. It used to be the case that array functions had to be activated different than normal worksheet functions. A normal worksheet function, such as 2 plus 2, if I want to activate that, I just click the enter button. However, if I want to activate an array function, clicking enter is not sufficient. You need to click Control, Shift, and enter. So all those three buttons together, otherwise it doesn't work. That is how it used to be. But in one of the more recent updates of Excel, they changed that, so now you can actually activate it with just clicking enter. So let me show you here an example. So here I have like a matrix A, which is a 3 times 2 matrix, and I have a matrix B, which is 2 times 3, and I want to multiply them together. So let me show you how it used to be. To multiply matrices together, you use the mmult, so matrix multiplication as it's short for. So the first matrix, and then the second matrix. And it used to be the case that I could not just click enter. I need to click Control, Shift, and enter. And when I do that, it will only give a single number here, but we need a 3 times 3 matrix. So I need to select the range here, and then click F2, and then Control, Shift, enter. Now there's something curious going on there. If you look here at the function window up here, you see that it has added these curly brackets surrounding like the function. I did not type out a curly bracket as you saw. All I did was to write mmult and then specify the ranges. I did not type in the curly brackets, yet here they are. But that is just there to tell you that this is an array function. It's not actually part of the function itself. If I click on this window to edit the function, you will see that the curly braces just disappears. They're gone. They're not part of the function. They are purely cosmetic, just to show to you that this is an array function. So if you're dealing with an array function, I want to show that it is like an array function by adding the curly brackets. So that's what's going on here. However, due to the recent update to Excel, well, it might not be so recent anymore, depending on when you see this in the future. we don't need to use Control-Shift-Enter anymore to activate array function. So let me show you. Let's see, I cannot change the whole thing. Okay, that's fine. Just delete the whole thing then. So mult, and then we multiply together these two matrices again. And then I just click enter. This wouldn't work before, but now it does. You see it automatically gives like the whole output. You see I have this blue border. So this blue border here is like the blue border now was now displaying that this is an array function rather than having curly brackets in the function display window. So they just changed the cosmetics essentially, and they wanted to make it easier. So that is essentially what happened. So it's kind of redundant now, but let's go back to the VBA window. Let's see, Alt F11. So yeah, it's kind of redundant to have the if then else function here. So what we could do instead now, in the more recent updates, as I said, is just to do it like this. So get function, the name of the function, is concatenation of the string here, which is like an arrow pointing to the left, and the formula array of the input variable r, which is specified here. So that's it. That's how you do it. So there's a lot of things going on there, like if then else functions and string concatenation and making functions in VBA. Pretty cool, I think. So thank you for attending my TED Talk. You may now give me some applause. I'm gonna go and eat breakfast.